Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions right after this class.
Alright, so we just shared the submission process. So I hope that you guys are aware that we have been playing the same video at the beginning and at the end of each and every class that's happening on YOLO. That's because we need you all to understand. We want you all to understand the fact that it's crucial to make your submissions on time, and we don't want you to just get stuck at any point while you're making your submissions. All right. So that's the reason we play the submission process, the video of how to make your submissions at the beginning of every class and also towards the end of every class. That's just because we don't want you all to get stuck at any point of making your submissions. And we really, really look forward to receive submissions from each one of you who's attending the hobby classes on YOLO. And for me personally, it is a very overwhelming response to see the submissions coming in throughout the class. And I honestly know how many of you are consistently making your submissions on time. So very well done. Keep it up. I appreciate all of your efforts who's making the submissions on time, attending the classes, and most importantly, enjoying all the hobby classes on YOLO. Okay, so that said, that was a crucial part. So that was a quick reminder for you. Just in case you have joined in right now and missed the submission process, as I said, the same submission process would be repeated, especially for you towards the end of this class. So make sure that you're not missing that process when the class ends. And yep, so it's the last class of our watercolor florals. And it has been a long journey, of course. We have focused a lot more on brush strokes. We did not focus too much on the normal usage of watercolors, but we were too much into understanding the brush strokes, just placing the brush in a different angle onto the paper and creating something out of it. So those are different kind of brush strokes that we have been learning throughout. And I think that we have already learned so much that it was time that we should look back and revisit all of those brush stroke and put it into one picture. Okay, so this class is going to be a kind of revision for all of you all, or a kind of cherishing moment for all of you all. Whatever we have done in the past classes of this course, we are going to revisit all of those techniques and create something really beautiful out of it. I think by the title, you already know, you guys are already aware that we are going to make a greeting card. So yes, it's again a floral greeting card, but this time we're not going to learn too many new techniques, but just going to revisit the earlier techniques because we have been already so much. So I thought let's make this class totally enjoyable and yet we can revisit the previous learnings that we had in this particular course. Okay, so again, a quick reminder, this is the last class of this course. Make sure that everybody who's making your submission consistently is making the submission for this particular course as well, so that by the end of this particular class, the course is going to complete and you'll receive a certificate for this class as well. Okay, so I don't want you to miss the opportunity to receive a certificate of this beautiful course. And yes, so that's done. That's enough said. And it's time to get started with the fun activity. So now I need quick thumbs ups from all of you guys. I see good number of people already joining in. So I need all of y'all to give me a quick thumbs up in the chat section. I need the thumbs ups coming in the chat section that you guys are ready with the art materials. You guys are all set with the art materials and you are all set to dive into the fun activity. Yes, so one last time, watercolor florals, class 4. So I need quick thumbs from each one of you. Come on, everybody, give me a thumbs up. Bring on a beautiful smile on your face and give me a thumbs up that you are ready for the class and let's just dive into the fun activity. Yes, so quick, come on, you guys, talented bunch of people. I need thumbs up coming in. I need all the excitement that you have rolling in the chat section. This is the last class. We're going to learn too many techniques. We're going to revisit too many techniques. I need thumbs up coming from you. Okay, so I just realized that there's too many thumbs up coming in already. So it's time to share the screen and let us just get started. Okay, so I've shared the screen. I hope you are able to see the screen as well. So you need not worry about the art materials. As I said, we already provide a list of materials that we need in a particular class, but just in case you need a quick check before we start the fun activity, this one is especially for you. So all eyes on the screen and let's just get started by discussing the art materials first. Okay, so let us get started. All right. So the first art material that we need is an A4 size drawing sheet. This is an A4 size drawing sheet that I'm using. This is white sheet, white drawing paper. In case you're not having an A4 size, an A5 size would be fine as well. Just make sure that if you're using an A5 size of drawing sheet, you make all of those illustrations smaller in size so that they fit onto paper. Since I have an A4 size of paper, it would be different for me. So I would be making an enlarged illustration. But if you're using a smaller size, make sure that you're making tiny illustrations that fit into the page. Okay. And in case you're not having white sheet, you know, you can use any other color sheet that you have. In case you're not having that as well, I'm sure you would be having a sheet of paper from your notebook. So you can just go grab a sheet from your notebook and you can create something on it as well. This is all about learning. We need not focus too much on the specific art materials. Just one or two substitutes here and there are fine as well. So just something to create watercolor illustrations on. So we need a base material. So a paper is essential. So make sure you have any of these, either a white sheet, white drawing paper, or a page from a notebook would be fine as well. That's the first art material. Any size would do. I'm using an A4 size. If you have a smaller size, that would be fine as well. If you have a larger size, that would work completely fine as well. Okay. So that's the first material. Second, we need a paintbrush. I'm again using a round brush only. Since we have been using this round brush throughout the course, we have been making those strokes with this particular brush itself. We are going to revisit the techniques in this class. So make sure you have a round brush. The size of the brush that I'm using is number 3. number or size of the round brush would do, but make sure it is a round brush and not a flat brush. Okay, so that's the paint brush. Next, since this is a watercolor course, of course we need these watercolors. I'm using the same watercolor cakes from Camel that I have. I'm using these watercolor cakes. You need not have too many of the shades, just basic would be fine. These are watercolor cakes. And the next art material we need is a water container. We need this for cleaning our brushes and activating our watercolors using watercolor cakes. Okay, so next is the water jar. Okay, and now the last one here is a black brush pen, but you can also use a black gel pen if black sketch pen if you have anything which has a black ink or any kind of a sketch pen, any colored sketch pen that you have, that would be fine. This is just for writing something or some kind of meshes on the greeting card. So this is completely optional. If you don't have any kind of sketch pen or a ball pen, gel pen, anything, you can completely skip this particular art material. So that is what we need. I'm going to use a brush pen for this. So these are basically all the art materials. I've already given you a number of substitutes for the art materials. We have discussed the art materials in detail. So there's no point of anybody missing onto the fun activity. Even if you're watching this particular class without your art materials, you can just for once observe what is happening, observe the process, and then in your free time you can carry out the process for yourself. Okay, but make sure that if you're attending this class, you're making your submissions. Okay, so all set, all done, and it's now time to dive into the fun activity. So let us begin. All right, first I'm just going to typically fold the A4 size sheet into half. So we just join the opposite corners, just like a normal greeting card that we make. So I'm joining the opposite side. Whatever size of sheet you're using, do the same process with your sheets. If you're using an A5 size sheet, you can again fold it into half and you'll have something like that. Make sure that the opening is well on the front side. The opening of the greeting card is on the front side for you. Fold it into half like a greeting card. Okay, so I've just folded this into half. And whatever sheet you're using, if you're using a notebook paper, you can again fold it into half. And for people who don't want to fold the sheet into half, you can just create the illustration with me on a blank sheet of paper. Instead of making it a greeting card, you can make it a normal artwork. Okay, so that was done. So we are just going to fold the paper into half. And now we are going to create something on the front side of this greeting card. Make sure that you're on the front side of the greeting card. The opening is on the correct side. The opening of this particular greeting card is on the correct side. And let us begin. So there's nothing typically new in this class. It is all a revisit to the previous techniques itself. So let's first begin with the illustration or the brush stroke that we learned in the first class. Okay, do you remember what did we do in the first class? Yes, I see some of you all saying we painted daisies. So again, in this class, we are going to start with number one technique of painting daisies. So let's begin with some daisies over here. So I'm going to quickly place the brush into the water, add some water to the brown watercolor paint. So I'm adding color to the brown watercolor paint here. So just add water to the brown watercolor, brown paint. Activate your brown paint. Add some water. If you're not having brown, you can also use red if you like. So that was a quick substitute for you. So I'm just quickly activating the brown paint. And then we all know that we will start by creating some tiny dots in semicircular areas like the pollens of the daisies. Okay, So I'm quickly taking a little bit of brown paint onto the brush, and then I first start by making those tiny dots, accumulated tiny dots in a semicircular area. Okay, some tiny dots. So I'm going to make a cluster of these tiny dots on different portions of the sheet. I've just zoomed in a little for you so that it's clearly visible on your screen. So again, going back and taking paint, and then I'm again going to create these pollens on another part of the sheet. I've just left a little bit of gap, and then I'm creating these dots again. We're not just going to paint daisies, we are going to add on to these. So make sure that you're not creating too many of these. Just 2 or 3 of these would be fine. Alright. So just 2 or 3 of these pollens that I'm creating in clusters, semicircular portions. Now it's time to clean your brushes. Get rid of the brown paint that's there on the brush, and then we have on to the yellow paint. So we'll add water to the yellow paint now, because we'll be making the petals of the daisy now. So again, taking the yellow paint, make sure that your brushes are clean and it is rid of all the brown paint that we have. Alright. We all know how did we paint daisies, but in case you've forgotten it, here's a quick recap for you. So all eyes on the screen for the first time. So carefully observe how I place the brush onto the paper. So I'll start from the tip being placed onto the paper, and then I just press the entire brush onto the paper and then lift it up, thereby making a petal shape. So the similar technique for the 3 pollens or clusters that we have created over here. So I'll just go ahead and add petals to the pollens that we have created. Okay, so this is exactly similar to the technique we learned in the first class of the course of this particular course itself. And as I said, you need not need too many of these daisies, because we are going to add something more to this particular greeting card. So just 2 or 3 of these would work absolutely fine. Alright. I've painted 3 of these daisies. In case you haven't followed it, I'm quickly repeating one of it for you. I quickly dab the brush with the paint onto the paper. Okay, so I place the tip of the brush near to the pollen grain, and I just create an impression of the brush itself. Okay, so I'm just creating these petals, and we have our daisies ready. So once I have created these daisies, 3 or 4, not more than that, we can move ahead now. So this was a revisit to the first class of this course where we painted daisies, and we have revisited the techniques that we learned in the first class. Let's move ahead. Let's take a step further now. In the class 2, we painted a lavender bookmark. Yes, so I see a lot of y'all remembering that particular bookmark. I could see some of y'all also mentioning in the chat section. It's time now to make some tiny lavender flowers, or add some tiny lavender flowers around these daisies. So quickly clean your brushes, get rid of the yellow paint that's there. Now quickly clean your brushes. This is yet another important thing that you need to follow while you're using watercolors. Yes, I've been repeating this particular process, that once you are done with using one shade, one paint, it's good to just get rid of all the paints before you move to the next shade that you have. So get rid of all the color that's there on the brush, and then add water to the violet watercolor. So lavenders are generally violet in color. In case you're not having violet, it's fine even if you use a blue time being. So you can use any shade of blue that's available with you. But since I have a violet color available, I'm going to activate that particular shade. So I'm just activating the violet color, a good amount of color onto your paints or onto the brushes. And then now just above the middle daisy over here, I'm going to paint a tiny lavender. So how did we paint the lavender? Here's a quick recap for you. So make sure that for the first time you have all your eyes on the screen. If you're not wanting to locate this particular lavender above the middle daisy, you can locate it anywhere on the sheet where you want it to. Okay, so we start from the top portion by adding some tiny dots with a little bit of gap. And as and when we move downwards, we keep expanding the number of dots that we create. Okay, so that's how we created the lavender. This one is of course a little smaller than what we made in the second class where we created a lavender bookmark. But this one is tiny. That was a huge lavender that we painted. So make sure that you're also making tiny lavender flowers because again, we would be adding something more to this particular illustration. Okay, so let us go ahead and add 2-3 more of these lavender flowers. Okay, it's just taking a good amount of paint onto the brush and I'll just randomly make these strokes. If you could just spot this particular, let's discuss this particular lavender flower. Look how I leave the white gaps in between. Okay, so you need not overlap everything. The white part left in between is essential to make it look like a lavender. If everything is overlapped, nothing would be visible. It would not even look like a lavender. So make sure that you start from the top and leave a little bit of gap. When you're moving downwards, you expand the number of the dots that you create. Okay, so just the similar technique that I'm following now. So just see how I expand the number of these strokes as I move downwards. And I also leave good amount of white gaps in between. I've painted the second lavender as well. I'm going to go ahead and add another lavender here. So make sure again that your illustrations are tiny, they are not too large, because as I said, we're going to add more. We are going to keep adding some more florals to this particular illustration. So not more than 4 of these, each of these flowers would be required. Okay, I'm done with adding these lavenders as well. So I'm quickly repeating the lavender one last time. So in case you haven't followed it or if you're waiting for my repeat, here it is for you. Let's start from here. We start by the top section by adding some brush strokes. And as we move downwards, we keep increasing the number of these strokes that we have created. And we also make sure that there's a good amount of white space left in between to differentiate or separate the petals of this particular flower. That's a lavender that we have created. It's time to now again wash your brushes nicely, dip it into the water container, get rid of the violet color that's there on the brush because we are now going to move ahead. We are going to go ahead and use another color now. Okay, let's get rid of the violet color that we have. Clean your brushes nicely. So that was the technique that we used in the class too. So first we painted daisies, then we painted these lavender flowers. And come on, so what did we learn in third class of this course? What did we do in the class 3 of this particular course, watercolor florals? Come on, I need answers coming in the chat section. What did we do in the class 3 of this course? What did we paint? Come on. you 5 seconds to type in your answers in the chat section, and let's see who could guess what, or who could just recollect what was done in the class 3 of this course. Yes, it was a frame of roses. We learned how to paint roses with simple C strokes. Yes, do you remember those C strokes that we learned in the previous class? It was just the previous class. This is the fourth class. The third class was just the previous class where we painted a frame of roses. Yes. So let us quickly get rid of the violet color now and dive into the next color, and we're going to paint roses now. Okay, so I'm going to activate a crimson color now. I'm going to paint red roses. If you want, you can also create yellow roses or blue roses if you want. But I would be creating crimson roses now. So I have added water to the crimson and taken a good amount of paint onto the brush. And we're going to start by painting the roses. So carefully observe. So I'm going to locate this particular rose just in between the gaps that I have. You can just find a gap which is sufficient for fitting in the rose, and you can create the rose at that particular area. Okay. And in case you've forgotten the technique, it's time to carefully observe it on the screen and then create it for yourself. Okay. So let us begin. We start by creating simple C strokes. I'm using the crimson paint over here. Okay, and we start by creating tiny C strokes first. So that's the first C that I create, the tiny C that I create with the tip of the brush. Now I again create a tiny C stroke in the opposite direction, and then just larger C strokes around it. Okay, that's how we create those C strokes, and we keep increasing those C strokes till the time we get the desired size of rose. Okay. All right. So you can see we have painted one rose already, and we're going to create at least 2 more of these roses. So again, if you have to follow the technique, make sure you're observing it for yet another time and then creating it for yourself. Okay. So we're going to take the amount of paint onto the paper, onto the paint brush, and then we start by creating C strokes. So the center portion of the flower, the center portion of this rose has tiny C strokes. We create a very tiny C stroke first, and then the same C stroke in the opposite direction. And then we create a little larger or longer C strokes around this particular C stroke. So consider this to be the center of the rose, and then just around it, we create these C strokes. So just around this. And we keep repeating these C strokes till the time we get the desired size of the rose. Okay. And as you can see, I do not overlap the C strokes. So white gap is essential in this particular flower as well. So white gap plays a major role in these flowers by making the petals look distinct. They look separated. So that's the reason having those white gaps in between is essential as well. Okay, so I've repeated the technique twice already, and I'm moving ahead and I'm going to add another rose somewhere down here. So again, you need not follow the exact location of the flowers. Okay, so it's not necessary that if I am painting the rose in these 3 areas of the sheet, also you need to create the same roses in those same areas. You can make your own choices of the locations of the flower. All right, I've created these 3 roses already now, and I'm again cleaning my brushes. And we are going to learn a different flower. It's not totally different for you because you have already learned the brush strokes in the previous class. I'm just cleaning the brush now, getting rid of the crimson red paint that I used for the rose. And now I'm going to activate the blue color. So this is not typically new flower, but I'm just going to create tiny flowers, very tiny flowers as fillers between this particular bunch of flowers. So I'm taking a little bit of blue onto the brush, and since this is a new flower, I want all of you to observe it for the first time, and then you can create it for yourself. All right, so just activating the paint and taking a good amount of blue onto the brush. And now I'm just going to create a tiny flower with these petals. I'm just creating a tiny flower with 5 petals to just fill into the gap. Okay, so I'm quickly repeating it for you here. I place the tip of the brush and I just normally create a petal. Just a tiny petal shape, a pointed petal is what I'm creating. I'm not going to name this particular flower because I'm just creating an imaginary flower over here as filler. But the other 3 flowers, the daisies, the lavenders, and the roses are something that we learned in the previous class. Okay, so this particular flower is just like a filler to add on. So just the pointed petals of the flower would be enough. Okay, so I've just added again colored flowers, and it's all done over here with the colors. It's now time to get rid of the blue paint that you have, and let's go ahead and add the stem and the leaves to these. So I'm going to clean the brush and activate a green shade. It may not be visible onto the screen, but I'm activating a green shade. Any shade of green would be fine. So quickly activate a green shade. Okay. And now we are going to make this look like a bouquet. So we are going to make it look like a bouquet. So just before you get started with the stem, make sure that you are observing it on the screen for the first time. Okay, so just activating the paint. And now just on the lower middle portion, just roughly at the middle lower portion, I'm just making a dot, a tiny dot, as an indicator that all of these stems should meet at this particular tiny dot that I have made. To make more sense, make sure that you're observing it on the screen because I'm drawing or creating these stems now. So first, let's start from the lavender flower, the extreme left, and look how I create a stem for this particular flower. That's not from the end of the flower, and I'll create the stem up till the end where it reaches the dot. Okay, so I'm going to create it in this way. Now, let's move to the next flower. The flower next to it is a rose. So I'm again going to add a stem to it, and I am going to again make the stem meet near the dot only. Okay, so we need to make it look like a bouquet of flower. So we are going to add the stems in such a way that they all are gathering at a particular point. Adding the stem to the blue tiny flower. So just free-handed. You need not be extremely perfect at adding the flowers, at adding the stems. They could be thick, they could be thin, that's fine because we have too many of these flowers added. So it's not necessary that all of these stems are of the same size. Okay. So all the flowers that are on the top section, you can just go ahead and add a half stem. Just add a half stem as possible. And make sure that at least for all the flowers that you have created here, you are creating a stem to it as well. Okay, so it shouldn't be hanging in the air. It should be attached to a stem. All right, so look how I created these stems for all of the flowers. And as I said, all of these stems should look like they are gathering at a single point to make it look like a bouquet. Okay, so we have already created the stems. Let's go ahead and add some leaves to it as well. So for the leaves, I'm going to use a different color. But if you feel you want to add some stems, you can go ahead and create those stems at the bottom section as well. Okay. All right. So just getting rid of this particular shade of green, I'm going to use another shade of green for the leaves. So getting rid of this particular green shade, and I'm going to activate another green color. So that's a sap green that I'm using. You can use the same green that you have already used for the stem, or if you want, you can just go ahead and use another shade of green if you want. Okay, so I'm going to add some leaves. So this particular flower is a lavender flower, and if you recollect, the leaves of this particular flower are a little elongated. So I'm just going to create a little elongated one. And for the rest of the flowers, you can create simple leaves. So it need not be necessary that the leaves are only on the lower side where the stems are gathering. Also on the top portion where you feel there's enough gap, you can just go ahead and add some leaves as fillers. Okay. Ways of adding these leaves, just two curved lines and adding some leaves. You can just go ahead and add some leaves at the gaps that you have. I'm just taking a little bit of green paint and adding a little bit of leaves. So you can just randomly add leaves wherever you want it to be. All right. So I have created few leaves here. Let's add a little more on the top portion. Okay. I'm done with the illustration. Adding the leaves is pretty simple, where we just create two curves and that's done. So let's quickly recap the class that we had. We first started by painting daisies. That was our first class of this course, and we revisited the techniques learned in the first class. Then we moved ahead and painted those lavender flowers, and then we moved ahead and created those roses with the sea strokes. So we're done with the paints and everything. So I'm just keeping it aside. Now, the next step that I'm doing would seem a little difficult for you right at the moment, because if your paint is wet, you need not write something around it right now. So I am just writing something on this particular area to make it look like a greeting card. What you can do is just wait for the paint to dry up, and when it is dried, you can then add your greetings onto this card. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and add some greetings here. So I'm using a brush pen, and also for a safer side, I'm placing a paper on this area. I'll go quickly add a paper onto this area so that the palm doesn't create impressions with the paint. Okay, so that's easy for me. I've just placed the paper onto that area, but you need not do that. You should be waiting for the paint to dry up, and then you can create something, or you can write your greetings on the top. So I'm writing on the greetings onto the top and using a brush pen, and I'm trying for calligraphy here. If you have attended any of the previous classes of folk calligraphy, you can use that technique here. But in case you haven't, you can just get creative with your greetings and write it in the most creative way possible for you. I'm using this folk calligraphy method here, and I'm writing best wishes. Okay, so I'm simply writing best wishes to make it a generic greeting card. Or you can write happy birthday, you can write happy anniversary, you can write thank you, any of the wishes that you want. And as I said, I'm using folk calligraphy here. If you have attended any of the previous class of folk calligraphy, it's good time to apply those techniques here. And in case you haven't, you can just write it in normal running handwriting. Okay, so we have a beautiful looking floral greeting card in front of us. You can write all your wishes inside as well, the messages inside as well. That is what we did in the last class of this course. And what better than just revisiting the previous techniques, right? So it was great time revisiting previous techniques. I hope you have learned a lot in this course about watercolors, about brush strokes, and you would be applying these particular techniques in the upcoming classes or in your projects as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this class, you enjoyed the entire course, and make sure that you're making your submissions for this class as well. And it's now time off for this course, and it's the end of this course today. The watercolor flooring course has come to the end in this particular class. I hope that you enjoyed a lot, you learned a lot, and I'll see you super duper soon with yet another course, and I hope to see all of you there. Okay, so let's meet super soon. And for now, I'm going to quickly go and check all of your submissions that you're making. Okay, so I'll see you super soon. Please take care of yourself and make sure that you're attending all the hobby classes on Uolo and enjoying being creative. Okay, I'll see you super soon. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at Uolo_app. I'm eagerly looking forward